the average golfer just needs to treat golf a little bit more like a sport rather than an algorithm that needs to be unlocked.
Yeah.
And a big part of that is staying in constant motion before they hit. Best one yet, I think. All right, so let's talk about changing of knee flex throughout the swing. Now, golf instruction has evolved over the years. A lot of what was taught was preferential for a period of time, what worked for one player, and then was kind of, let's say, echoed throughout.
Yeah.
Right? Now, as time's gone on, with the introduction of biomechanics and 3D and more data collection, right, and science and factual-based evidence around the golf swing, we see that the majority of PGA Tour players, if we remove the golf club in the hand element, as they swing back from their knee flex from the address position, they would tend to lengthen this trail leg, right?
Yes.
Then in transition, it would reflex, and then it would eventually straighten again, right? Yeah. We see a very unique problem, bit of a curveball here, of sometimes we get players who, in the attempt to let their back leg lengthen, they actually lock it out, and then it stays locked out throughout the entirety of the downswing. Now, this is the player who would also generally get quite far up on their toes because we lose any interaction with our ability to grip the ground in a simplistic fashion, like create speed, right? And we know that that is what generally, or that is what creates the most amount of consistency and power at the moment of impact, using the ground correctly, right? Now, funny term to use, but essentially, we just want to use our body in an athletic manner, right? And that's how you get your sequence. And when we see players who do get to the top of their swing, and they lock this thing out because they think they need to straighten the back leg, and then it stays locked out, that's a highly inefficient movement, right?
Yeah, hard to move, hard to create power, hard to, as keep hearing, is use the ground. The ground contact helps us deliver power through the body. So losing that, it stiffens you up. It sort of blocks your movement, blocks your freedom and your speed.
Yeah, and something that I feel like we both definitely agree on is that the average golfer just needs to treat golf a little bit more like a sport rather than an algorithm that needs to be unlocked.
Yeah.
And a big part of that is staying in constant motion before they hit, feeling that their body is soft and relaxed. They're in an athletic posture, their feet are moving. And we just did a video just before on using these little steps to get yourself in a relaxed posture. But I want you to now evolve that into how do we ensure that we're getting the correct change of knee flex in the backswing and then transition, so we're able to utilize that ground and create more consistency.
Yeah, so a good movement, I would say, is to, again, sensing how the body moves. But as you do that, you feel your torso rotating back, but taking small steps. So winding up, my lower body's engaged, I take some steps back, and even just rotating back through, and I'm keeping like these steps going, so my lower body's engaged. It helps, keeps it switched on.
I think something that we do see with a lot of PGA Tour players, if you ever watch any of their workouts, there's a lot of band work like this, where they'll have a band wrapped around them, and what they're doing is they're moving their body in constant motion, staying engaged with their lower body as their upper body is rotating around. Now, as they do that, there is generally always going to be, at the end of the peak amount of rotation that they can achieve with their upper body, their lower body would then kick in. Now, this is certainly not locking out by any means, is it?
No, not locking out. So we can have a range of motion in it. We need that to complete our full movement, but we don't go too far. We lock out. We're trying too hard to force it. We lock out. We get stuck.
And that stuck is exactly what happens in transition. So we definitely don't want to get stuck and tense at address. We don't want to be too tight with our grip pressure, which can then cause a bunch of issues with the swing. And we certainly don't want to lock anything out in the backswing. And I would say a great reminder for players is when they're warming up at home, right? When they're just hitting a couple of shots on the range or before a round, is to actually just make some swings where they're in a golf posture, but they're kind of keeping their feet moving like this, and just feel like it's long and slow and continuous, right? And feel like their arms are almost jelly. Feel like a lot of the movement is created from the torso turn both back and through. And then if they actually film themselves, they would probably see that their lower body works quite effectively, doesn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and you'll see as you keep dynamic, as you keep moving, little movements in the feet, you start to get the correct knee movement. You don't lock that out because it's generally because we forced it.
Yeah. Definitely don't want to force anything in the golf swing, right? So I'm going to have another practice swing here. I'm going to pump the elbows to stay nice and soft. I'm going to feel that as I turn back. This is certainly not locking out. It's staying engaged. And what will naturally happen when we don't lock that out, it's just changing and straightening knee flex a little bit. It'll naturally want to reflex on the way down and then follow through. That reflexing, that sort of movement with the professional golfer where you see them get tall, low, and then explode is what creates the most power. Anything to add on that before I... No,
certainly a ton of power. Probably most visible in long drive hitters. You see that there is that extended movement. We move up without locking. There's a lowering, connecting to the ground and driving off the ground to create a ton of force. The golfer who's been extending doesn't need to chase that too hard, but moving more in that pattern, we're starting to create more power in the movement.
And then progress through. Love it, love it. All right, let's put it all together. I'm gonna have one more practice swing, just feeling that moving. Love, even when I do that, I feel like the sequence and the fluidity is just there, which sometimes I miss out on when I'm playing. Off we go. All right, my man, great advice. That one felt great. Love your work.
Nice work.